Kiri was not like the humans who once filled the ship's long metal halls with noise and life. He was small, only 3 feet tall from his soft feet to the top of his round head. His skin was pale green, his big eyes shiny like dark marbles under the dim lights. Kiri was a Mervani, a race known for tiny hands, careful steps, and big hearts. Every day, Kiri woke up inside his small nest, hidden behind a broken storage panel in Section B of the silent Ark. The Ark was a giant cargo ship built by humans many years ago. Now it drifted alone in the deep black sea of stars. Long ago, the humans had left. No one knew exactly why. Kiri only knew the stories, old whispered tales passed down by his parents before they were gone too. The silent Ark was his whole world. Its long metal hallways were his streets, its empty cabins his old shops, and its giant dusty cargo bays were his parks. But most of all, the ship was his duty. Kiri took a small broom everywhere he went. The broom's handle was longer than his arm, but he dragged it behind him without complaint. He had an old bucket, too, dented and patched with tape. He carried a rag in his pocket. He called them his tools of respect, because to Kiri, cleaning was not just about sweeping dust. It was about saying thank you to the humans who saved the Mervani long ago. Long ago, when Kiri's people's home world was dying, humans had come in big ships. They gave food and medicine. They took many Mervani to live in safe places. Some stayed behind on human ships to work and help. Kiri's family stayed on the silent Ark to keep it clean. But then something happened. An emergency, the stories said. The humans left in escape pods. They left behind crates of food, machines, clothes, and the ship itself. Now Kiri was alone. He was the last cleaner, the last Mervani on the Ark. Every morning he cleaned the command bridge first. The captain's chair, dusty and cracked, sat in the middle like a lonely throne. Kiri climbed up the seat and polished the armrests carefully. He sometimes sat there and closed his eyes, pretending he was the captain giving orders to invisible crew members. "Status report," he would squeak in his small voice, his words echoing back from the empty walls. Then he would giggle, hop down and sweep away the day's dust. After the bridge, he moved to the living quarters. He wiped old tables, picked up broken cups, and folded blankets left behind. Kiri liked the human things: colorful pillows, strange old books, posters of blue oceans and green forests he had never seen. Sometimes he found a small treasure, like a tiny music box that still played a soft tune when he turned its rusty key. He would hold the music box close to his ear, eyes closed, and imagine he was on Earth, wherever that was. Today, Kiri was in Cargo Bay 7. The cargo bay was huge. Tall shelves full of crates, boxes, metal barrels, and heavy machines covered in plastic sheets. Some boxes were bigger than his whole nest. He liked cleaning here because it felt like an adventure. He could hide behind crates and pretend they were caves. Sometimes he even found snacks, old ration packs that still worked if he tapped them the right way. Kiri pulled his broom along the metal floor. He swept up dust, bits of wire, and tiny nuts and bolts that rolled out of old toolboxes. He hummed to himself, a soft tune his mother once sang while teaching him to clean. Then he heard something. Clink. Kiri stopped. He looked around with wide eyes. He waited, his long ears twitching. Nothing moved. He slowly pushed the broom forward. Clink. This time it was louder. Something was moving. Kiri's heart beat faster. He hugged his broom to his chest. He turned his head left and right. The noise came from behind a tall stack of supply crates near the far wall. There was no wind here, no open door. Nothing should move. He took a step closer, careful not to kick an empty can that might make a loud noise. He listened. He heard a soft electric hum, then silence. He crept closer. Kiri had found old robots before, tiny helper bots with dead batteries. But this sound was different. It was not metal feet on the floor. It was not the whir of a cleaning drone. It was more like something alive. He touched the corner of a crate. The metal was cold under his fingers. He peered around it slowly. His big eyes blinked once, twice. He gasped. One crate, half open, glowed softly from inside. A blue light shone through a crack where the lid was not fully shut. Kiri's small hands trembled. He stepped closer. The light flickered. He could hear a soft, slow hiss, like air escaping. Kiri sniffed the air. It smelled strange, like old plastic and frozen metal. Carefully, he climbed up on a small box to see inside the glowing crate. Inside, he saw something he never thought he would see again. A cryopod. A real human cryopod with thick glass and blinking lights. Inside the pod, behind a frosty window, lay a human. It was a woman. Her face was pale. Her brown hair floated around her head like soft strings. She wore an old uniform, blue with a patch of Earth's flag on the shoulder. Kiri knew that symbol from the posters in the command bridge. He almost dropped his broom. His tiny feet slipped on the metal box. He caught himself and pressed his face close to the glass. The human's eyes were closed, but he could see her chest rise and fall, slow, like a sleeping giant. Kiri's heart thumped in his ears. He wanted to run. He wanted to hide behind the crates and never come out. But he could not move. A human was here. A real human. Alive. After all these lonely cycles, after all his cleaning and dreaming, there was a human right in front of him. Kiri's small hands pressed against the glass. He stared at the sleeping face inside the pod. Then, the pod's lights flickered again. The hum turned into a soft, broken alarm. Something was wrong. Kiri could see tiny sparks where the cables met the pod side. The lights blinked faster. Red, not blue. The air hissed louder. Fear turned into worry. Worry turned into action. Kiri grabbed his broom and his rag. He wiped his hands on his tiny coat. He knew he had to fix it. Fix the pod, save the human, do whatever it took. The tiny custodian of the silent ark was not alone anymore. Kiri could not feel his feet as he stood on the crate. His heart beat so fast it made his chest hurt. The human inside the cryopod looked peaceful, like someone dreaming. But the lights on the side of the pod flashed red and yellow. That was not good. Kiri knew what red lights meant. Danger. He scrambled down the crate, careful not to trip. His small hands grabbed his broom and bucket. They were not enough. He needed tools, real tools. He scurried away from the glowing pod and hurried to his secret supply closet near Cargo Bay 7's side door. This closet was one of Kiri's favorite places. Long ago, when he was just a tiny kid, his father showed him how to hide things there. Inside were old human tools, rusty wrenches, half-broken screwdrivers, and pieces of wire he had saved from trash bins. He pushed open the metal door with his shoulder and squeezed inside. Kiri picked up a small toolkit with handles bigger than his hands. He grabbed a tiny light he had fixed last year. It still worked if he hit it twice. He stuffed spare wires in his bucket along with tape and a half-eaten ration bar. He almost forgot his best tool, a flat piece of metal he used to pry open stuck panels. He stuffed it under his arm and ran back. The blue light inside the crate was weaker now. The cryopod hissed louder. Tiny sparks danced on its side where the cables met the power port. Kiri dropped to his knees beside the crate. He set his broom aside. Today, cleaning could wait. First, he wiped his hands on his coat. Then he switched on his little light and pointed it at the pod's control panel. The panel's screen was cracked. The buttons flickered with dull orange letters in human standard. Kiri squinted. He had learned some human words from old posters and manuals. He found the words power fault and seal weak. His whiskers twitched. That did not sound good. He climbed. Up on the crate again and pulled the side panel open with his metal prying tool. The panel made a soft click and swung out. Behind it were tangled wires, some burnt at the ends. A tiny puff of smoke rose up and made Kiri cough. He grabbed a small screwdriver and turned one screw at a time. His hands were steady. His father had taught him well. His eyes darted from wire to wire. He found the main power feed. It had snapped near the plug. He poked it gently. A tiny spark made him jump back, but he did not run away. Okay, Kiri, he whispered to himself. Fix wire. Save human. He pulled out a fresh piece of wire from his bucket and bit it with his small, sharp teeth to make it shorter. He wrapped the new piece around the broken end and twisted them together. Then he used his tape, layers and layers of sticky tape, until the wire held firm. The alarm inside the pod made a softer beep now. The red light changed to orange. Kiri's big eyes brightened. It was working, but he was not done yet. He checked the air seal. The tiny screen showed the word weak. Kiri looked at the pod's edge. He saw a thin crack where the glass met the metal frame. Cold air leaked out in a faint mist. Kiri pulled out a tube of glue he had found months ago in an old human workshop. He pressed the tip against the crack and squeezed. Thick, clear glue oozed out. He spread it carefully with his small finger, making sure the crack was sealed. The glue smelled funny, but Kiri did not care. He blew on it gently to help it dry. The pod's hum grew stronger. The blue light inside glowed brighter again. The human's face looked calmer. Her chest rose and fell more evenly now. Kiri let out a long breath he did not know he was holding. He sat back on his heels and looked at the sleeping giant inside the glass. He wondered what her name was. What did she dream about while floating in frozen sleep? Did she dream of Earth? Green trees? Blue oceans? Warm sunlight? Kiri closed his eyes and tried to imagine it. But his daydream broke when the pod made a soft click. The glass cover shifted slightly. Kiri jumped up, almost falling off the crate. He held his breath. The pod clicked again. The seal cracked open with a hiss of cold air. Kiri's small ears twitched at the sound. He grabbed his broom like a spear. He was scared, but he did not run. He watched the glass slide open, inch by inch. Cold mist poured out and made his fur stand on end. The woman inside opened her eyes. They were hazy at first, half closed and unfocused. She blinked once, then twice. Her eyes moved slowly, looking at the metal ceiling, then at the crates around her. Finally, they fell on Kiri, tiny Kiri holding his broom, standing on a box like a nervous statue. The woman's lips moved. Her voice was dry, just a whisper. "Where am I?" Kiri squeaked. He understood the words. He knew enough human talk to guess, but he could not answer. His mouth felt dry. He wanted to hide behind the crate again, but he stayed. The woman lifted a weak hand. She touched the side of the pod. Her eyes found Kiri again. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. She needed water, maybe food. Kiri dropped his broom and grabbed his ration bar. He held it up with both hands, shaking. He stepped closer to the edge of the pod and placed the bar gently on the pod's rim. The woman tried to smile. Her lips curved a little. She reached for the bar with slow fingers. Her voice was clearer this time, though still soft. "Thank you." Kiri's tiny heart felt warm and heavy at the same time. He had done it. He had saved a human, his first human, but he knew this was just the start. The silent Ark was old and broken in many places, and now the sleeping giant was awake. Kiri looked at the dark corners of Cargo Bay 7. He wondered what else waited in the shadows. For now, he would stay. He would help. After all, that was what a custodian did. He kept things clean, he kept things safe, and maybe, just maybe, he could bring this human back to her home among the stars. Kiri watched the human woman chew the ration bar slowly. She looked so big to him. Her hands were huge compared to his tiny fingers. Her eyes were tired but soft. She sat up inside the half-open cryopod, blinking as she looked around the cargo bay. She tried to speak again. Her voice cracked like old paper. "Water," she whispered. Kiri understood that word too. He nodded fast, his big eyes wide. He dropped down from the crate, grabbed his small bucket, and ran to the corner of Cargo Bay 7, where an old water dispenser still worked. He pressed his tiny finger on the rusty button. Cold, clean water dripped out into a small cup made from an old metal lid. He carried the cup carefully with both hands, his feet moving fast but careful not to spill a drop. When he reached the pot again, the woman was watching him. She tried to smile when he held out the water. She took it from his hands with slow fingers. "Thank you," she said again, her voice clearer now. She drank every drop. Some water dripped, down her chin and onto her uniform. But she did not care. Kiri stood there, hugging his empty bucket. He did not know what to do next. Should he run and hide? Should he try to talk? He wanted to help. He wanted her to know he was friendly. But his human words were very few. The woman looked at him, her eyes curious but gentle. She pointed at her chest weakly. "Riley," she said. Her hand tapped her uniform, right above a small name tag that read, Latep Riley Hart. Kiri tilted his head. He pointed at his own chest with a tiny green finger. "Kiri!" he squeaked. His voice sounded so small compared to hers. Riley smiled a tired smile. "Kiri," she repeated softly. "You help me?" Kiri nodded fast. He pointed at himself, then at the ship around them. He spoke the words he knew. "Kiri, clean, ship." Riley looked around the cargo bay. Her eyes landed on the broom, the bucket, and the neat piles of trash Kiri had cleaned earlier. She gave a weak laugh, a sound that made Kiri's heart flutter with warmth. "You keep this place clean, huh?" Riley said. Kiri did not understand every word, but he liked her voice. It was warm and calm, like old music boxes he found sometimes. Riley looked around. She touched the cryopod's controls, frowning when the flickering screen showed static. She pressed a few buttons, but nothing worked. She looked back at Kiri. "Translator?" she asked. She made a small shape with her hands, like she was holding something. "Talk? Understand?" Kiri understood the sign. He nodded slowly. He knew about translators, small devices humans used to speak to the Mervani when they first met. He did not have one, but maybe there was one nearby. He jumped down from the crate and waved for Riley to stay. He squeaked, "Wait! Wait!" Then he ran off through the cargo bay doors. Riley watched the tiny alien disappear behind crates. She touched her throat and coughed softly. Her body felt weak, her muscles stiff. It had been so long, years, maybe decades, since she was awake. She remembered the emergency alarms, the rush to stasis, the fear in the eyes of her crew. Then only sleep, cold and endless. She looked around the cargo bay. She saw old cargo nets, dusty crates marked Earth supplies, rusty tools, and strange patches on the walls where the tiny alien must have cleaned away mold and rust. She let out a soft laugh again. She was alone on a ghost ship. But not alone. Really. She had Kiri. Meanwhile, Kiri ran fast on his short legs. His small feet tapped on the metal floor as he hurried to Section C2. He knew there was an old locker room near the engineering deck. He had cleaned it many times. Once, he found a broken translator badge inside a torn jacket. He had kept it because it looked shiny. Maybe he could fix it now. He squeezed through a narrow gap between jammed doors and entered the dark locker room. His tiny light flickered as he moved through dusty metal lockers. He climbed up a broken bench and pulled open a locker door with all his strength. Inside, on a high shelf, sat the old translator badge, silver and round, with a small crack on the side. Kiri grabbed it with both hands. He held it to his ear. He shook it gently. It rattled. He frowned but did not give up. He stuffed it in his pocket and hurried back the way he came. When he reached Cargo Bay 7, Riley was still sitting, in the cryopod. She looked tired, but her eyes lit up when she saw Kiri holding the badge. He climbed up the crate and sat beside her. He showed her the badge, turning it over in his small hands. Riley reached out and took the badge carefully. "Good, Kiri," she said softly. She pressed the power button. The badge crackled and hissed. Static noise filled the cargo bay for a moment, then fell silent. Riley frowned. She turned it over and tapped it. Nothing. Kiri squeaked. He pulled out his tiny screwdriver and pointed at the badge. Riley smiled and handed it back to him. Kiri opened a small panel on the side and peeked inside. Wires were loose. He pulled out a fresh wire from his pocket, always ready, and carefully wrapped it around the broken end. He used tape to hold it in place. He closed the panel, pressed the button again. This time, the badge buzzed to life with a soft beep. A tiny green light blinked. Riley's eyes widened. She tapped the badge. She said slowly, "Can you understand?" The badge repeated her words in Kiri's language, choppy but clear. Kiri's eyes grew wide. He squeaked back, "Yes! Kiri, understand! Kiri, help!" Riley let out a soft laugh that turned into a cough. "Good job, little friend," she said. The badge translated her words back to Kiri in his own tongue. His chest puffed up with pride. Riley touched his tiny hand with her big fingers. "I need to fix this ship. I need your help, Kiri." Kiri nodded fast. His ears twitched. "Kiri, help! Human save Mervani! Kiri, save human!" he squeaked. Riley looked around the silent cargo bay. "We start tomorrow," she said softly. "Together." In that moment, the giant human and the tiny alien custodian sat side by side in the cold, dark cargo bay. Outside, the stars drifted by, silent and endless. But inside the silent ark, hope flickered awake, just like the sleeping giant. Kiri woke up before the lights flickered on. He sat in his small nest behind a storage panel, hugging his broom close. He felt something new in his tiny heart today, something bigger than his fear. It was hope. For cycles and cycles, he was alone on the silent ark. Now, there was Lieutenant Riley Hart, the giant human who called him friend. She needed him, and that made Kiri feel taller than his 3 feet. He washed his face with cool water from an old pipe, fixed his coat, and checked his tiny toolkit twice. He tucked the half-working translator badge into his pocket. Then he grabbed his bucket and broom. He would always keep them with him, even when fixing machines. When he reached Cargo Bay 7, he found Riley sitting on a crate, legs dangling down. She looked stronger today. She had found an old jacket in a storage bin to keep warm. She smiled when she saw Kiri. "Morning, Kiri," she said. The translator badge crackled and repeated her words in Kiri's squeaky tongue. Kiri squeaked back, "Good morning, Riley. Kiri, ready to help." Riley looked around the cargo bay. Her eyes stopped at the flickering ceiling light. "Ship needs power first," she said. She spoke slowly so the badge could keep up. "Main reactor must be checked. We need lights, heat, air. Can you get me to engineering?" Kiri nodded quickly. He knew every tunnel, every vent, every crawl space. He pointed to a side door. "This way, faster. Kiri's small. Kiri knows small ways." Riley climbed down from the crate, careful not to bump her head on the low pipes. She picked up a broken metal rod to use as a walking stick. Her legs were stiff but getting stronger. Together, the small alien and the tall human moved through the dark hallway. Kiri led the way with his small light. Riley ducked under pipes and stepped over fallen panels. The ship creaked and groaned around them like an old, sleeping beast. They reached a narrow passage near Section D. Kiri turned and pointed at a round vent door. "Inside. Shortcut to engineering." Riley looked at the small vent. "You sure? I'll fit?" she asked. Kiri nodded. "Big human crawls slow, but fit." Riley smiled. She knelt down and pushed the vent door open. Cold air flowed out. Kiri crawled in first. The tunnel was just wide enough for Riley to follow on her elbows and knees. Metal walls pressed close around them. Kiri's small feet tapped ahead while Riley's breathing echoed behind him. Halfway through, Kiri heard something, a soft scratching sound. He froze. Riley bumped gently into his feet. "What's wrong?" she whispered. Kiri's ears twitched. He sniffed the cold air. The scratching sound came again from up ahead, like tiny claws scraping metal. "Wait here," Kiri squeaked. He crawled forward, pressing his small body against the duct wall. The sound got louder. Scratch, scratch, scratch. He peeked through, a vent grate. Below him was a small storage room filled with broken machines. He saw movement, shadows crawling across the floor. Not just one, but 3, 4, maybe more. Tiny shapes, long and thin, with too many legs. Their bodies shimmered in the weak light. They crept along the walls and slipped through cracks in the floor. Kiri's heart thumped. He knew the silent ark had pests, small metal-eating bugs. But these were bigger, faster, and wrong. He backed away from the vent grate and crawled back to Riley. "Something there?" Riley asked. Kiri nodded, voice low. "Not normal bugs. Bad bugs. Eat wires. Eat power." Riley's eyes narrowed. "Parasitic nest?" she guessed. Kiri did not know the word parasitic, but he understood nest. He squeaked, "Yes, many. Bad for ship." Riley thought for a moment. "We keep going. We fix reactor first. Then we deal with them." "Okay?" Kiri nodded, though fear tickled his neck. He led Riley past the vent grate, moving as quiet as a whisper. The scratching faded behind them, but Kiri knew the shadows were still there. After another long crawl, they reached a rusty hatch that opened into the lower engineering deck. Kiri pushed it open and dropped lightly onto the floor. Riley followed, landing with a small grunt. Engineering was huge. Thick pipes crossed the ceiling. Control panels blinked weakly along the walls. The main reactor sat in the center like a giant metal heart. Its hum was soft, too soft. Riley stepped forward. She brushed her fingers over the cold reactor housing. "Power core's sleeping," she said. "Needs a wake-up call." Kiri tilted his head. He asked, "Fix?" Riley turned. To him, "Yes, but I need your small hands, Kiri. You fit where I can't." Kiri puffed up his chest. "Kiri ready?" Riley pointed to a side panel halfway up the reactor. "There's a fuse box inside. I'll lift you up." Kiri dropped his bucket and climbed onto Riley's strong arm. She lifted him like a parent lifting a small child. Kiri's tiny hands grabbed the edge of the panel. He flipped it open with his prying tool. Inside, dust covered everything. Some wires were burnt, and the main fuse was cracked. Kiri coughed at the dust but did not stop. He pulled out his small wire roll. His tiny fingers worked quickly, twisting and wrapping new lines. Riley kept watch. She turned when she heard something, a soft scratching echoing from the open hatch. Her grip on the metal rod tightened. "Hurry, Kiri," she whispered. Kiri squeaked back, "Almost." He tugged the broken fuse free. He placed a spare one from his pocket, one he had found long ago in a forgotten drawer. He twisted it in place, wiped dust away, and tapped the power node. The reactor shuddered. A low hum filled the room. Lights flickered to life along the walls. Warm air drifted out of old vents. Riley laughed, a sound like hope. "Good job, little buddy," she said, but before Kiri could squeak back, they heard it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Shadows poured through the hatch they had crawled from. Long, spindly shapes with shiny shells moved fast across the floor. Their tiny eyes glowed in the fresh light. Riley stepped in front of Kiri. She raised her metal rod like a sword. "Stay behind me," she ordered. Kiri dropped from the panel and grabbed his broom. It felt silly, but it was the only thing he had. He stood beside Riley, tiny but unafraid. The shadows crept closer. The ship's lights flickered and buzzed. In the heart of the silent ark, the custodian and the sleeping giant stood together. They would not let the shadows win. The reactor room was warmer now. The big engine in the center of engineering hummed with new life. Yellow lights flickered along the walls, chasing away some of the darkness. But they could not chase away the shadows crawling on the floor. Kiri gripped his old broom so tight his tiny hands hurt. Beside him, Riley held the metal rod high, ready to swing. The strange bugs, long, thin, shiny creatures with too many legs, moved closer. Their little eyes glowed like tiny stars. One bug crawled fast and climbed a pipe near Riley's shoulder. She swung the rod with a sharp clang. The bug fell, legs twitching. Kiri squeaked in fear but did not run. He stayed at Riley's feet, his heart beating like a drum. Riley looked down at Kiri. "We have to stop them," she said firmly. The translator badge repeated her words in Kiri's tongue. Kiri squeaked back, "How? Too many!" Riley pointed at the humming reactor. "They want power. They eat power lines. If they break the lines again, the ship will die." Kiri understood. His eyes darted around the room. The bugs were climbing walls, slipping through tiny cracks, scratching at cables. Riley pressed her free hand on Kiri's small shoulder. "We fight here. But I need you, Kiri. You know the small places. You close vents, block holes, keep them out." Kiri nodded fast. "Kiri, do it!" Riley gave him a quick smile, then turned to swing her rod at another bug that crawled too close. Sparks flew when the rod hit the metal floor. The bug curled up and stopped moving. Kiri ran to the first vent. It was a small round opening near the floor where 3 bugs crawled out. He pulled out his roll of tape and his rag. He stuffed the rag into the vent and wrapped tape all around it. One bug slipped out, but Kiri swung his broom like a sword. Thunk! The bug rolled away, legs stiff. He heard Riley shout behind him. He turned and saw her fighting 2 bugs at once. She blocked one with her rod and kicked the other away with her boot. Her breath came in hard gasps. Her hair stuck to her forehead. Kiri squeaked to her, "Hold! Kiri, fast!" He scurried to the next vent, a wide crack behind a power box. He pulled a piece of metal scrap from his bucket and jammed it into the gap. His tiny arms shook, but he pushed until it stayed in place. A bug inside scratched at the metal but could not get through. Suddenly, Kiri heard a hiss. He turned. A bug, bigger than the others, crawled down from a pipe right above his head. Its legs reached for him. Kiri dropped his broom. He grabbed a wire from his bucket and swung it like a whip. The wire snapped against the bug's legs. It hissed and fell backward. Riley's voice called out, "Kiri, watch out!" She swung her rod again. The metal hit the big bug and smashed it against the floor. Kiri squeaked in relief. But there were more. The bugs came in waves, drawn to the warm hum of the newly fixed reactor. Riley blocked the stairs, with a broken crate buying a little time. She looked at Kiri, breathing hard. "We can't kill them all," she said. "We need a plan." Kiri's ears twitched. His big eyes looked at the warm reactor core. Then he remembered the big vent above it, the one that blew hot air when the power was strong. If he could open it wide, maybe the heat would push the bugs away. Bugs liked cold, dark places. He squeaked, "Heat! Use heat! Bugs run!" Riley's eyes widened. "Yes! Overload the vent ducts! Smart, Kiri!" She ran to the main panel. Sparks flew as bugs crawled over it, but she pushed them off with her rod. Her fingers flew over the buttons. Kiri jumped onto a side pipe and climbed to reach the small manual lever for the top vent. The bugs hissed louder. One bit Riley's arm, but she shook it off and smashed it with her rod. She pressed the final button. A deep clang echoed in the room as the vent above the reactor opened wide. Hot air burst out like a furnace. The warm wind blew across the room, whipping Kiri's fur and Riley's hair. The bugs shrieked in their tiny voices. Their legs twitched. One by one, they crawled backward away from the heat. Kiri held onto the pipe so he would not fall. He squeaked with all his might. "Go! Go!" The bugs scrambled for cracks in the walls, squealing and scratching at the sealed vents Kiri had blocked. The heat pushed them back, deeper into the ship's empty halls. Riley stepped back from the panel, breathing hard. She dropped her rod and leaned against the reactor housing. She looked up at Kiri, still hanging from the pipe. "You did it, Kiri!" She laughed, her voice weak but full of life. "You're a hero!" Kiri dropped down, landing beside her with a soft thud. He squeaked, "Team! Kiri and Riley team!" Riley nodded. She sat down on the warm floor, pulled off her torn jacket sleeve, and checked the small bite on her arm. "I'll be fine," she said when Kiri looked worried. "Just a scratch." They sat in silence for a moment. The reactor hummed stronger now, warm air flowing through the ship. The lights stayed on. The shadows were gone. For now. Riley turned to Kiri. "Next, we fix the comms," she said. "We send a signal. Bring help." Kiri hugged his broom tight. He looked around at the warm lights, the safe walls. Silent Ark. Not alone now. Riley smiled. She reached out her big hand. Kiri placed his tiny green hand in hers. Human and Mervani. Big and small. A team in the dark. Far away, the stars waited. But inside the old cargo ship, two friends were ready to fight for each other, and for the hope of tomorrow. The silent Ark was warm again. After so many cold cycles, the ship's metal walls felt alive. The lights stayed on. Air flowed through the old vents. But the best part was not the power or the warm air. It was the tiny alien and the tall human, sitting side by side in the reactor room, breathing easy for the first time in a long while. Kiri leaned against Riley's arm. His small body was tired. His broom lay on the floor beside him. Riley rested her metal rod next to it. They had won. One fight. But they both knew the real mission was not finished yet. Riley looked at Kiri and smiled. "Good work, little friend," she said. The translator badge on her chest repeated her words in Kiri's squeaky voice. Kiri squeaked back, "Team strong! Team clean bugs!" He puffed up his chest, proud. Riley laughed softly. She rubbed her sore arm where the bug had bitten her. "Now, we must tell someone we're here," she said. "The ship is old, but if we fix the comms, maybe Earth will hear us." Kiri's ears twitched. He liked the sound of Earth. It was the place the humans always talked about, a place with blue, skies, green trees, and warm sun. He wanted to see it. Maybe one day he could. Riley stood up slowly. She offered her hand. Kiri grabbed her big fingers with his tiny hand and let her pull him up. He picked up his broom and bucket. Even when saving the ship, Kiri would not leave. His tools behind. They left engineering together, stepping over the broken bugs that lay still on the warm floor. Kiri led Riley down a side passage to the old lift. The lift made a slow, creaking sound as it rose, carrying them toward the top deck, where the big comms dish was hidden. The door slid open with a soft hiss. They stepped into the comms control room. Dust lay thick on every screen. Old chairs were tipped over. Some cables hung from the ceiling like vines. Riley looked at the main panel. "All right," she said. "If this still works, I can boost the signal. I just need power lines connected and the dish turned to face Earth." Kiri squeaked, "Kiri, help!" He dropped his bucket and crawled under the main console. His small light blinked as he checked each wire. Some were burnt, some were loose. He pulled out his wire roll, almost empty now, and began twisting broken ends together. Riley climbed a metal ladder to the upper deck where the giant comms dish sat. She opened a hatch to the outside. Cold air brushed her face as she looked, out into space. Stars stretched forever in every direction. The Earth was somewhere out there, blue and alive. She would find it. She grabbed the manual dish handle. The old motor was too weak, so she turned it with her own hands. Metal creaked and groaned as the dish shifted, pointing slowly toward a bright dot far away, Earth. Back inside, Kiri squeaked, happily. The lights on the console turned green. He popped his tiny head out and gave Riley a thumbs up. "Ready," he chirped. Riley climbed back down and tapped the console. Static filled the room. A tiny light blinked. Signal boost ready. She pressed the transmit button. A soft hum filled the air. Old speakers crackled. A weak signal pulsed into the stars. Riley held the mic close to her mouth. "This is Lieutenant Riley Hart of the Silent Ark," she said slowly, her voice steady. "This ship is adrift but alive. One survivor and one friend. Requesting rescue. Repeat, requesting rescue." The translator badge whispered her words in Kiri's language. He watched her with big eyes, his tiny hands gripping his broom tight. They waited. Seconds felt like forever. Riley pressed her ear close to the old speaker. Static answered back. Then, crackle, crackle, something. A soft voice, broken but clear. "Lieutenant Hart, Silent Ark, receiving you." Riley's eyes filled with tears. She laughed, a bright sound that bounced off the dusty walls. She looked down at Kiri and ruffled his head gently. "They heard us, Kiri," she said. "Help is coming." Kiri squeaked so loud the mic picked up his voice too. "Kiri!" "See Earth? Kiri see trees?" Riley wiped her eyes. "Yes, Kiri, we'll see trees, grass, blue sky. No metal walls forever." Suddenly the lights flickered. The static returned. The voice cut out. The console beeped a warning. Low power. The bugs had damaged many lines deep inside the ship. They had one chance. Riley looked at the control panel. She turned to Kiri. "We need to hold the signal. There's an old backup cell below the deck. If we connect it, the signal will stay alive long enough for Earth to find our location." Kiri squeaked bravely. "Kiri, go! Kiri, small! Kiri, fast!" He scrambled down a side ladder into the dark belly of the comms deck. Pipes hissed with old steam. Shadows moved in corners, but Kiri did not care. He pushed open a panel, found the dusty backup cell, small but strong, and dragged it out. It was heavy for his tiny arms. He squeaked and pulled with all his strength. At the top, Riley reached down, grabbed the other end, and lifted it out like it weighed nothing. Together, they locked the backup cell into the power slot. Kiri twisted the last wire tight. Sparks danced. The lights glowed brighter. The signal hummed strong and steady. The static cleared. The voice came again, clearer now. "Silent Ark, we have your signal. Rescue ship inbound. Hold position. You're not alone." Kiri's eyes shone like stars. He hugged Riley's leg, tiny arms tight. Riley knelt and hugged him back. "You did this, Kiri," she whispered. "You kept this ship alive. You saved me. Now Earth will save us both." Kiri squeaked softly. "Team forever." Outside the Silent Ark, the giant comms dish pointed at Earth like a metal flower reaching for the sun. Inside, a small custodian and a brave human watched the stars, ready for the day when doors would open, warm light would shine, and they would walk out together, big and small, into a world where no one was ever alone again.